What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Forgotten Jesus podcast. Today, Pastor, we are getting into Luke chapter 2, the birth of Jesus.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure this is like the one episode everybody's wanted us to get to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's taken a little time to get here.
Just 30 episodes or so.
30?
I don't know. Something like that.
It's taken like 60 episodes, 50 episodes.
60. Yeah, it definitely feels like
maybe
60,
50,
so.
maybe 50. Okay, but we don't want to rush this, Andrew.
No.
We want to build the case for this.
This is like a crock pot recipe.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying?
I like that.
Or a slow smoked brisket.
Ooh.
Like the slower, the better.
Yeah.
More tender.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
Falls off the bone. I like what you're talking about. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so
maybe I'm just hungry.
You're going to get us all hungry this morning. Luke chapter 2.
You should probably make us a brisket soon.
Yeah.
Wait, do you make brisket? That is your next hobby.
I don't need another hobby.
No,
I don't need
listen,
another hobby.
Andrew, we need his next hobby to be cooking.
Oh, yes, we can do that. I will stoke that.
I need his next hobby to be cooking.
Stoke that. He's got the one-liners. I mean, he's on it this morning. He'll stoke that. No pun intended.
Yeah, we can do it.
I'll fan that in the flame.
He has made an occasional.
Oh man, I could
brisket?
cook. Yeah, my hobbies are more for the benefit of me. You know, like disc golf and
we know.
I
woodworking
don't know
and
if
ham
you
radio.
can
And
cook, but you can grill.
yeah, right.
occasionally.
I'm not a big cook.
I've had to learn to grill. Anyway, this is a whole
Okay,
other podcast.
that's a whole
Okay.
other sermon for
The
another
birth of
day.
Jesus.
The birth of Jesus. Okay, so right out the gate, Luke chapter 2, verse 1. We'll start reading. So, Candy, I want you to read. Let's read, and obviously I'll stop you soon, but let's just read. I don't even want to tell you where to go to because we're not going to go
Because
far.
we're not
those
going
days.
far.
Okay,
let me
stop
guess.
there.
Let me guess.
In those
Okay.
days. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Luke 2:1. In those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that the whole empire should be registered. The first registration took place while Quirinius was governing Syria.
Okay, let's stop there. Okay, so a lot of names we can't pronounce, and we're learning. Okay, so what is Luke doing
Quirinius.
by giving us this historical background of the text?
Dating it.
He's dating. Remember, Luke is what? Or let's go
Giving
back to
you an orderly account.
yes,
Details.
Because he was talking to the Greek audience
yes,
who thought that way.
man. I'll
Andrew,
tell you,
you are
when I listen to the podcast sometimes, just to make sure we don't have to give clarification on things I've said or someone else, which is normally
Or someone else.
Well, not you, but normally I just
Candy. Okay,
I've just
moving
been
on.
thoroughly impressed with your knowledge
Well, thank
and your teachable spirit.
You retain the knowledge, which is good.
Yeah.
You know,
That
like you
is-
remember it.
That is the grace of God.
well,
Because
and
I
here's
don't
the-
remember
is-
things.
yeah. Well,
I
no,
forget.
you remember things. Here's what's funny. I've realized how many times you or Candy will say something very profound, and in the moment, my brain's on autopilot with all
Right.
this information that I go back. I'm not making this up. I'll go back and listen with I use the podcast to teach my boys
Right.
in the car on the way to school. They don't listen to me say it, but they'll listen to me and you and Candy say it
Right.
on
Oh,
the
yeah.
radio because it's like professional. So I'll say, "Hey, did you hear what I just?" Or did you hear what I just?
Well,
But
what
anyway-
we have learned is that we will say something profound and you'll forget about it. Then you'll re-say it as if it's your own idea.
Here
and
we
we're
go.
like, yes, Pastor,
Here we
I
go.
agree.
Okay,
Like,
just
yeah,
let me
you're
keep.
right.
Yeah, you're-
Just let me keep
you're
thinking
on
of it. Okay, Moving on. Okay, Caesar Augustus. Who is he? Who is Caesar Augustus?
An emperor.
From where?
Augustus, Georgia.
No, not Augustus.
don't
Georgia.
tell me.
No, where is he? Where is Caesar Augustus from? The Caesars are all from where?
Rome.
Rome. Okay, so we have Caesar Augustus, who's the big guy in Rome. Now, the cool thing about Caesar for the Jewish people is he let them do a few things. He allowed them to do a few things. He allowed them to rest on the Sabbath, which was a big deal.
Okay.
He allowed them to celebrate their festivals.
Okay, so is Hellenism influenced?
Of course, Hellenism, Romanism.
Keep your things, but also add these to it.
Yeah, you could worship the one true God,
Right.
but just know that the real Lord and
Yeah.
Savior is Caesar, right. You need to know that. And over time, when Jesus dies and the Romans come in and overtake or sack Jerusalem, the persecution for worship of emperor, imperial worship ramps up, where right now it's an option. Like you can worship God, but worship Caesar. But in the 100s and time of Paul, it's you better worship Caesar or you die. There's only one Lord and God, which is really insightful for us. Why? Because to claim Jesus, to confess Jesus is Lord, which Paul tells the Romans. Remember, you've got to confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe that God raised him from the dead in your heart, and you will be saved. Jesus is Lord was a death sentence for some people, because
that
that's
means
like
Caesar's not.
Right. That's like saying the president. That's like saying Jim Jong Kim in Korea. Is that his name? Can't even think of his name. Kim in Korea. I know his name. If you say he's not the Lord and Savior of the country and someone else is, you die immediately.
Right.
That's how it was. Okay. So Caesar Augustus is a man, a real man in a real time period. And then Quirinius is the governor, it says, and he's going to call for the census. Now, what Luke is doing is he's giving us an ability to date the birth of Jesus.
Right. It's good.
Because what we can do is take the biblical record and we can compare it with the historical record, and we can find that Caesar was a real man, Augustus, Quirinius was a real man, and these guys were really governing the world at that time.
Right.
Guess what time period we find this? Okay, what time period, what year? And I'll give you a clue. Don't use ChatGPT yet. No.
Listen, I was on
Not
it.
right now. Not right now. I want you to just guess.
Okay.
And the answer is, if you're listening, it's not 0 AD. It's not 0. Because we always have thought, well, Jesus changed, the whole world. Jesus was so impactful. We turned, which is partly, we did before
say
Christ,
like
4.
That's
after
what I was
Christ.
gonna say.
But it's not 0. Okay, 4. That's a good guess. Candy?
I was going to say 4.
Okay. There is a debate on this, okay? And obviously it depends on where you land. But the earliest I think you could say is 4. The earliest.
There we go.
Wow.
Meaning it's not 1, it's not
Right.
2 BC, it's not 3 BC. I would say this is my opinion, and I think it's backed by
Would you mean AD?
AD. No, BC.
Oh, BC.
BC. 4 BC.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, 4 BC.
because it works backwards.
Remember, it works backward. It goes
Yeah.
4 BC, 3 BC, 2 BC, 1. You don't
Right.
count 0, you count 1. So it goes 1 to 1. Okay? You go 1 down, 1 up. It's kind of confusing. Okay. But some will say as early as 6 BC. I've even read today when I was studying it, one guy says 8 BC. I think that's too early. But 4 BC is where I land. Now, if Jesus was born in 4 BC, and you count the 3 years leading up to 0, and he dies, we know he dies at 30 AD. We know that. Okay, that's confirmed. That puts Jesus at the age of 33. So this is how we say Jesus was born on 4 BC, died at 30 AD, and he died at the age of 33. Started his ministry roughly 30 AD. Why is that important? Because we're documenting that Jesus is not the tooth fairy. He's not like Santa Claus. He's not some fictitious character made up. No, this is a real man in a real place, real people. Right. Okay, so they say the first registration took place. Now, here's how the registration worked back then. The reason they wanted them to go back to their hometown to be counted for a census, if you will, is for one main reason, okay?
Taxes. They
wanted to tax the people to make money. And so Joseph and Mary now pregnant, they're living in Nazareth in the Galilee area, and they have to make the long journey down to Bethlehem, the town of Joseph. Okay, so let's keep reading, and we're going to see what happened.
Wouldn't it be awesome if we were able to see that census?
What census?
The one that they took when everybody had to go back to their hometown and register.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be like a census?
If we had an iCloud.
Because, we
if we
do
had
that
it on
today.
iCloud, it'd be awesome.
Like if you go on Ancestry.com.
Oh, you mean like Ancestry.com? Yeah.
You can go back and find like the censuses that your grandparents or great-grandparents filled out, who was living in their home at the time, what age, what occupation, and it would have been something similar to that. And could you, I wonder somewhere out there, is it preserved?
No, it's not. It's not preserved. And not only is it not preserved, but remember, we talked about this in a previous episode. The Galilee region, particularly the area of Nazareth, knew their lineage well because they believed that the Messiah would come from there. In fact, the whole Jewish culture knew their lineage well. They had records and records of it. They were kept in the temple area in Jerusalem. After the Romans came through in 70 AD, when they burned everything to the ground. This is just a sidebar here. Have you ever wondered, how can you burn a temple to the ground? It's made of stone.
Right.
You ever thought about this? Anybody ever thought? Like, I can understand like houses, wooden houses, but it says it was burned to the ground. Here's how it burned, because I've thought of this. I thought that doesn't make sense. When they made the plaster or the cement that went between the bricks that held the mortar, if you will, that held the bricks, these huge stones together, it was actually made with flammable material. Did you know this? And so when they burned it,
just fell apart.
It just all crumbled. All the weight just shifted and it fell apart. And so that's how it burned. But the problem was anything that was of papyrus,
right? Oh yeah,
all of them burned. Now, somebody in our church stopped me last week at our Better Man gathering, and he said, I got a question for you. He said, do you think the fact that all the records burned in 70 AD is God's statement to the world to say, stop looking for the Messiah through your lineage, he's already here?
Oh, wow.
Golly, think about that. That's a cool insight. I never thought about that. I thought that was a cool insight. So, all right, moving on. We're sidetracked, and we're not even into what I want to get to. Okay, verse 3. But this is all good, but verse 3.
Okay. So everyone went to be registered, each to his own town. Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and the family line of David.
Okay, now remember, stop here. He's of the line of David, which is true, but he's disqualified himself as a human from being the Messiah's, father or connected to the Messiah because of the Jeconiah problem in his life. Now, he goes back there. One of the things I want you to see, you have two worlds running concurrent at the same time, okay? You have the visible realm that we see, the things that we see in the natural visible realm, but you also have the supernatural sovereign plan of God working behind the scenes where you can't see. How do I know this? Look at the text. It says God used a pagan ruler, you ready for this? To call the first couple of the Messiah back from Nazareth, down to Bethlehem. Oh, by the way, and she's 8.5 months pregnant.
Wow.
Now, ladies, don't overlook this. The first miracle before the miracle of the incarnation was the fact that Joseph traveled. I mean, think about this. Doctors tell our ladies today, you can't even drive a certain amount, right? And I'm going to tell you how they get there, which is really going to set you back. But that a minor miracle is they came from Nazareth, which is, you ready for this? An 80 to 90 mile journey. Okay.
Walk.
And it's, there's no Greyhound bus.
Right.
There's no Jerusalem Transit Authority system. They're not riding the subway or the tube if you're overseas, right? They are actually going to walk there. I'm going to make the case for that. But here's the point of that. Why do I say the two kingdoms running concurrently? God is using in the natural realm a census to bring the first couple down to Bethlehem, but they're also coming to fulfill the prophecy of Micah chapter 5, when it says that he will be born where, of all places? In Bethlehem. The Messiah will come. Oh, you Bethlehem, the smallest tribe, but out of you will come the Messiah, okay? And it shows us another reminder, whatever's going on in your life, listen to me, it may look like pagan leaders are in control and things are out of whack or things aren't going your way. Just be reminded, even your boss or the leader of our country, leader of the world, let me remind you of Proverbs 21:1. A king's heart is like a stream of water in the hand of the Lord. He directs it wherever he chooses. Isn't that a cool verse?
It is cool.
So it doesn't matter. I mean, it may look bad and difficult like it did for them at times, but God's just giving a wink to say, hey, listen, I'm still in control. So now they travel back to Bethlehem.
Brought up Romans 8:28 for me, by the way. Just
Okay,
saying.
yeah.
God works all things to the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose.
Amen.
Yes, and we say this a lot. No
all
accidents.
Things means all things.
All things in Greek means all things.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is going to shock you, so brace yourself for this. In fact, when I shared this at Long Hollow, my first Christmas here, I don't think I was here, but 2.5 months? And I thought back then, well, surely they're going to love to hear these new insights they've never heard before about the Jewishness of Jesus.
I blacked out that whole season.
Oh, gosh.
I'm just kidding.
I did too, actually. But anyway, so I got up in my naive, proud of self, insights, knowledge that I had studied. And I said this line that got more email. And people talked about this for months and months after. We joke about it now, but I said, you need to know. Because what I did was essentially ruined every nativity scene in every front yard of every Christian family in America.
I threw mine in the trash.
Yeah.
I went home and threw it away.
Yeah.
You don't have to throw it away.
No,
You just have to
my
rearrange
grandmother
it.
gave it to me, and I just threw it away.
No, you didn't.
crazy.
Family heirloom gone.
I've ruined the whole family
I'm just
tradition.
kidding.
No, he's crazy. He's lying. Okay.
I still love my
Yeah.
nativities.
Well, but you just have to
Okay,
get the
so
right.
how did you ruin it? How did you ruin it?
Well,
Tell
I'm
us.
not saying you throw it away. You just have to rearrange it to make it
Okay.
biblical.
Yeah.
You can have an unbiblical one in your driveway. I'm not saying you can't. But if you want to have a biblical
What
one.
makes it unbiblical?
One, they weren't in a wood
Well,
stable.
hold on, Andrew.
I'm
Hold
just
on.
saying.
Hold on, we ain't gotten there yet. The first one is
Sorry.
there is no donkey at the stable.
Well, my nativity doesn't have a donkey.
Well, some
Well,
do.
that's because y'all got rid of it.
No. Okay, listen, no.
I don't think mine
Well,
growing up ever had
but
a
I'm
donkey
talking about
either.
the ones on the lawn normally have donkeys. Now, here's the thing I want to say, and this is going to make sense when you listen to it, okay? Mary and Joseph, I believe, and I'm convinced of this, and I've fact-checked it, obviously anecdotally, but I've fact-checked it with every tour guide I've ever been to Israel with. It's been 4 or 5 of them every year for 5 years, but multiple tour guides, probably like 10 of them. And they've all said the same thing. Now, in America, it's going to shock you, but here's the statement. I do not believe Mary made the 80-mile journey on the back of a donkey. I don't think she did. Now, some of you are probably saying, really? 8.5-month pregnant woman traveling about 5 to 10 miles a day, right? Because that's about, and that seems like a lot, but for them, it wouldn't have been too much. That would have taken them about a week and a half, 2 weeks, depending, to get there by foot. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, when I said this, again, people said, oh, you're crazy. That's not the way I've read the story. That's not the
Right.
books I've read. Okay, let me give the case to show you why I believe that. Okay, number one is every tour guide I've asked said, oh, it makes sense. There's no way they had a donkey. I said, really, why? Because they didn't have money.
Right.
A donkey was like a Cadillac today, or like a Mercedes today. I mean, you have to have wealth and influence to be able to purchase the donkey. But the reason I think they didn't have a donkey is this reason, okay? Go with me to Luke chapter 2, verse 22, and I want to show you something about what they offered to the Lord on the 8th day after Jesus was born. And this will show you why I think they didn't have a donkey. Luke chapter 2, verse 22, it says that the parents are going to bring Jesus to the temple as suggested. Let's read this, Candy.
And when the days of their purification according to the law of Moses were finished, they brought him up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord, just as it is written in the law of the Lord, every firstborn male will be dedicated to the Lord, and to offer a sacrifice according to what is stated in the law of the Lord, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons.
Okay, now if you read that just at face value, you're like, oh, that's great. They went to the temple, offered 2 turtle doves. Andrew, what is the glaring issue with that line?
The turtle doves.
Okay, why?
Because
two birds.
Yeah, I mean, they're the cheaper of the things you could have sacrificed. It's not a lamb, not a spotless lamb.
Yes. Okay. We learn that from Leviticus chapter 12. So go to Candy, go to Leviticus chapter 12, verse 8, and I want to show you the turtle doves were not what was recommended. It was not what was expected. You're going to see the turtle doves
Kind of like the minimum you could do, right?
are the minimum exception. It's kind of like a footnote. If you can't afford this, then this. Watch. Read this, verse 8.
But if she doesn't have sufficient means for a sheep, she may take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one for a burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. Then the priest will make atonement on her behalf, and she will be clean.
Okay, so that's the exception. Now, let me frame it for you. Mom and Dad just had not just any firstborn son, not even just an awaited firstborn son, not even just one spoke to by the angels. We've had those before in the Bible. This is whose son?
God's.
God's son. Feel the weight of this. So you are giving back and dedicating back to God the Father the son he has given you to care for. You're gonna sell the farm.
Right.
You're gonna sell the field. You'll do whatever you have to do, i.e., you will sell the donkey so that you could buy a sheep to give to the Lord. And so what commentators believe and what the Messianic Jewish guys that I've followed and suggest that they didn't have a donkey.
Right. I mean, I don't see it anywhere in here.
And by the way,
Right.
it's not in the
It's
text.
not in the text.
Right.
No, it's not in the text at all. We have assumed
right.
that because they made the journey. Now you got to remember, they walked everywhere. They
100%,
they walked
yeah.
everywhere. In fact, in the Old Testament, you got to realize when they left Egypt and went to the Promised Land, were there pregnant women walking to the Promised Land?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Were there young women walking who had just had babies? Absolutely. What if they said, I can't walk anymore, I'm tired?
But they didn't even think about that. That's just what they do.
No, they got left
Yeah,
behind. They
that's all-
had
they
to walk.
walked
Now,
everywhere.
the question is, why do they not have any money? And the answer is, why do you think they don't
they're
have
a
money?
young couple. Like they haven't even really started their own life yet.
Well, true, but remember we have this idea again, not in the Bible. We have this idea that Joseph could have been older.
Okay.
Probably in his late
Okay.
20s, maybe 30s. It would have been uncommon, but not unlikely. Joseph in his late 30s. Okay, he
Late
could have been.
30s.
I mean, late.
That's
I'm
old.
sorry, late
That's
20s,
old.
not
Late
late
30s.
30s. Late 20s.
I was
Sorry,
about to say,
late 20s.
This is not right.
Mid late 20s.
Right.
Okay.
He could have been working. The problem is, or the challenge was, what did he do for a profession?
Well, wasn't he a carpenter?
No, stonemason. Where are the trees?
Well,
This
that-
guy,
well,
he's on it
carpenter
today.
is
He's on it today.
tecton, but
Well, I'm just
Yes.
saying.
He's
That's
learned-
why people have messed up
He's
stories.
listened.
You
No,
were
he's
right.
Okay, so that's good, Kenny. We have translated
Also,
it.
wasn't a rooster that crowed. You want to talk about
Okay,
that?
don't mess them up today. You're going to mess them all up. We're going to
jumping
tell
ahead, Andrew.
3 things we said today. They didn't come on a donkey. Joseph wasn't a carpenter, and there wasn't a rooster actually crowing it. We got to save that for
We'll
later.
save that. We'll save that.
We've
for,
got to bill
that's
like years,
2 or 3 years from now.
Yeah,
So
but I don't believe there was a rooster that crowed in the garden. But anyway, that's a whole nother sermon. But here's the point. Joseph was what the Bible translates, or the Bible says, is a tecton, Tekton. The English translators of the King James Version of the Bible translated that word as what?
carpenter.
Carpenter. Why would they translate it as carpenter?
because it's our Western mindset.
Yeah, because that's what they did. You built
Right.
you built homes and
Right.
you used wood.
I mean, you go back and even look at the painting of the Last Supper. I know we're getting way ahead, but it was so heavily influenced by the area that they
yes.
lived in when they painted it.
Da Vinci was not an Eastern rabbi from the Middle East. He was from Rome, and he
So
was
tekton, the Greek word, generally means builder or craftsman.
yeah. It actually means this: someone who works with their hands.
Right.
Okay.
So here's what we're going to do: we're going to leave you with a cliffhanger, and we're going to pick up next week. And here's
Okay.
why: I want to leave you with a cliffhanger to get you to think: what did Joseph actually craft or create or work with his hands with? And I want you to think in context of the land of Israel. Are there stones everywhere? Or are there trees everywhere? And that will help you think of it when we come back next week and pick up why Joseph and Mary did not have a donkey, nor gave the best offering they could.
Okay, so real quick, Pastor, before we close, give me just a thought for us to discuss. So if we're meeting with our Forgotten Jesus groups, we're wanting to break this down. How does this apply to us? What's something we can discuss?
Yeah, think of times when there was a concurrent reality in your life where you looked at something that was overwhelming, difficult, didn't look like it was going your way. You mean we got to travel 8.5 months pregnant for 80 miles to Bethlehem? Oh, no, by the way, you're going to fulfill prophecy.
Yeah.
God's plan, your plan, the world's plan, working concurrent simultaneously.
Yeah.
I think about times like that. Look at your life and say, wow, I didn't think God I always say when you're down to nothing, God's always up to
Right.
something.
Yeah, I mean, just your own story.
Good.
Think about Katrina. That was a
Right.
devastating disaster that
Right.
God used in a huge way in your life as part of
course,
your story.
of course.
Okay. Well, thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Candy, for that. Again, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, be sure to share it with a friend. We'd love to connect with you also on social media. So if you can connect with us on Instagram at The Forgotten Jesus, that's a great place to ask us questions. That's where we get any of the content for that when we do bonus episodes. And we just like knowing who's listening. So, again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.